and I am here with, I don't know what your middle name is, but you look like you would be like a Matthew Leonard Dotson or a Matthew, maybe a Matthew Richard Dotson. What's the middle name? What's the middle name?
George.
Of course.
Which both of my grandfathers were named George. So and that's our youngest son Keegan. His middle name is also George.
Excellent.
So the family tradition keeps going.
Can't have enough Georges. Even Seinfeld had a George.
That's right.
and every unit needs a George. I did know one of the grandfathers, George, and he was a good fella. Liked to mow yards, I believe, as I can recall.
Loved to mow yards. I wish he was here to come mow mine right now.
And he would do it.
He would.
Completely random fact, and I just literally thought about this. I bought a motorcycle from your granddaddy years ago to the tune of $600. Now, this was a good motorcycle. $600 And at the time, I was working at the button plant. For those people who aren't from Centerville, the button plant, the way you get to it, you got to go up a long hill. And that thing didn't make it up the hill most of the time. But it went fast downhill.
From what I recall, my grandmother made him get rid of his motorcycle when I was born, because she didn't want him getting hurt. Which that was '86.
Let's see.
I don't know if it was maybe that particular bike. But.
I don't know, but it was my first one. So at any rate, Matthew, thank you for doing this, man. I know it's kind of it is what time we get? It is 10:12 in the Central Time. Yeah. So you took the family out and had some fun. Smoked them in some mini golf you were bragging about.
Not as much as I would have liked to. I think I beat Mom finished second. She lost by 4. So. They got to learn to win. They got to learn to lose.
Hey, listen, no free rides. No free rides. You got to teach him. You got to do. If you're gonna beat the old man, you got to beat him.
That's what my dad always said.
I somehow imagined that. But anyway, Matthew, you just one of the heroes of Centerville, Tennessee, and we've been buddies for quite a while, and I really respect you and a lot of the stuff that you do, all the stuff that you do. But I think most folks would sort of know Matthew Dotson as a basketball player, star basketball player from Hickman County. You had a stellar middle school career. Your picture's up in the gym in the hallway there. I guess it's still there. I don't know.
But when Dad was teaching PE there, he had multiple students say, they saw my picture out there and they just said, "How did he die?" They thought it was. They thought it was a memorial.
Memorial, yeah.
But
no, still very much around. And that was a skinnier Matthew Dotson back in the 7th grade, what I can recall.
A little too skinny.
Yeah, that's skinny. Still got kids up. We can hear that, and that's fine.
Oh, yeah. They're.
You said they're baling hay, I think is what you said.
Bruin's asleep, and Keegan is working hard baling hay. Got the tedder going. He can tell you more about farm equipment than I can. But.
Yeah, well, got to earn your keep around here.
That's right.
However they work. So anyhow, had a big middle school career, but especially high school. So remind me now, you played for Coach Puckett?
I did. Coach Puckett's first year coaching here was my first year playing at the high school.
Okay.
We both started there in the fall of 2001 and played at Hickman County High School for 4 years. Had a great experience there, and now I'm teaching there.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And you and I are very similar in both raised here, only lived here, only place you ever lived, and except for college, and you moved back. And are able to make a home here, and that's a real special thing for sure. And I know that it's been a blessing to you and to me as well.
Yeah.
So when you were playing back in that time, you guys were you in AAA all 4 years?
And that was another first. It was my first year, Coach Puckett's first year, and also our first year in AAA. That's when and the program had kind of struggled up to that point, and moving up a classification, we knew it was an even greater challenge. I think my freshman year we won 6 games, and that was I think we were 6-20, and in our minds that was a great accomplishment. I think the years prior it hadn't been too many more games than that total. So It was, we were playing teams Franklin, Hillsboro, Overton, Centennial,
Overton.
Brentwood High School, Franklin High School, which now seems so outrageous, I guess,
Yeah.
thinking that, of course, that was before East Hickman High School opened. So
Yep.
that's the reason we were in AAA, and it was certainly a challenge, and it was fun to see our progress over those next few years.
I will never forget. That's kind of when I started doing the radio with Mike Brown, and I think we went to maybe Hillwood or Hillwood maybe. At any rate, he said, "Listen, as the time is winding down and the buzzer sounds, you need to have all your stuff together because they will shut the lights off within like 2 minutes. I mean, the lights are going off. I guess I had to save money. I don't know." And he was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was right.
That sounds like I think it was Hillwood that did that.
Might have been, but they were, trying to conserve energy, I suppose.
Yeah.
So did you get to play much as a freshman in high school?
I did. I think I started from game one, and it was about 2/3 through the season before the coaches kind of really encouraged me to be more aggressive offensively. I think I played pretty timid up to that point because I was a freshman. I was fortunate enough to play with some good upperclassmen who were very kind to me. It's not always easy to be encouraging to the freshman that's coming in and playing a lot of minutes, but they were very supportive of what I was doing and how I was playing, and that allowed me, as I said, about 2/3 through the season, my freshman year, to come out of my shell and really step into more of a leadership role and be more aggressive offensively, I guess. Some might say I became more of a ball hog as the whole thing goes, but it wasn't really that. It was just it was a mindset that I had to change. And you've played sports, so much of it is about, as my dad said, it's about what's between the ears, less so than what you're actually able to do. So that really, along with my coaches and some good teammates, allowed me to really step it up at that point in the season.
Absolutely. You probably can speak to this as well as anybody in just kind of in this little bit of a modern era. So obviously, when you go from middle school to high school, the game changes a lot. I think the speed of the game, of course, the talent level, kids are just better. So what did you find maybe the most difficult in your transition, going into your freshman year? I mean, you were a thin guy. Did you, even at that time in high school, did it seem like, it was a little rougher in the middle? You had to be a little more aggressive. You had to push and bang a little bit. What was a difficult transition, or what was the most difficult part of the transition for you?
I think you mentioned it, just the physical nature of the game. You had to be physically tough and mentally tough. I was not, I think as a freshman, I was 6'7", 180 pounds. And, you had people, obviously elbows being thrown. It seems like the game not as much was called then. I'm sorry, not as much as called now as was then, but you had people throwing elbows. You had people that would pinch you kind of in your side, and a lot of trash talk. I've never really been a trash talker, and so you definitely have to develop a thick skin, and that was part of that mentality that kind of changed with me, was just trying to let my playing do the talking, as opposed to because they want to get under your skin mentally. They want to make you back down physically with that physicality. So yeah, and the same thing happening from high school to college. Just the level of physicality.
Yeah. So did you play AAU every summer throughout high school?
I didn't. I played a couple years in middle school. After my freshman year of high school, I had an opportunity to play with a local team, and I kind of decided I just wanted to work on my own game. And, I went to several camps in the summer. I used to always go to the Vanderbilt basketball camp. I went to a few others that were here somewhat locally. Of course, we had team camps. And I just, between that and, I was also playing golf. I played on the golf team in high school. That summer after my freshman year was more of a time where I just didn't think I could make it happen time-wise, and I wanted to do other things. after my sophomore year, middle of my sophomore year, I was approached by a coach. His name's Ian Andreessen, and he was a coach for what was the Tennessee Travelers. I think maybe that's they changed a lot with AAU now, and I really haven't followed as much. But he came to a game of mine during my sophomore year, and I played with them in the summer of 2003 and 2004. And that was, I knew of travel basketball, I knew of AAU, but this was more of a college showcase type of team. In other words, we cared about winning and losing, but it was more about getting us in front of college coaches. And that was probably the most amazing, fun experience of high school basketball, was that getting that AAU aspect of it.
Yeah, and that's really become, it's an extremely popular thing in anymore. As
Right.
you know, if a kid has a desire to play at the next level, it's almost a must.
Right.
And in some ways, what's your opinion? And I guess you can debate it on a lot of different from a lot of different angles. It seems like you have to somehow, and now as a parent, and maybe at some point you'll be dealing with this with your sons, that there has to be some kind of balance. Did you ever feel like your life was in any way out of balance because it's basketball all the time, you're practicing or you're traveling, and man, I can't enjoy, school breaks, I can't enjoy holidays. It really takes a special kid to, I think, be willing to do the work and to sacrifice what it's going to take oftentimes to really make it. You made it to the Division I level, and we'll talk about that. But even just to play post-high school basketball, you're going to have to do some work. And do you feel like sometimes it's too much?
In hindsight, I realize I missed out on a lot of things. I tell students and people who know me know that I love to travel now. We take a lot of family trips, and a big part of that is because I didn't really take any growing up. And my vacation was going to a city, maybe Houston or Orlando, and playing basketball for 3 days, and not really doing much else. And there was also junior golf tournaments, again, basketball camps, practices. But at the time, I didn't look at it that way because that's all I knew. And I understood, you get to high school, I understood why I was doing that. It was to, for me, I always say, basketball was my job in high school. I didn't have a job per se in high school, but my job was, getting in the gym, going to AAU tournaments so that my college tuition could be paid for. You mentioned the word sacrifice. I always think of my parents, because my parents, as you know, Devin, they drove everywhere. They drove to all these tournaments. We had a Suburban full of teammates from across the state of Tennessee, and we'd drive to, Virginia Beach and Augusta, Georgia, Orlando, Houston, Kansas City, all in a span of a couple months. But looking back, I think I would have liked to do more with my parents as far as seeing the world, traveling. But that's what we did, and it was. And I was fortunate and blessed to have parents who, while that was a focus, it was not the only thing we did. We still went to church and we worshiped and we studied the Bible together, and but it was difficult. It was difficult.
Yeah, and I know that you would be the absolute first one to say, and you say it often, both I'm sure in the classroom, in the pulpit, wherever you happen to be, that you were extremely blessed with a mom and dad who, because you were an only child. So they were able to pour everything they had into you, whether it be time, resources, whatever. I know that even though you might look back and say, well, there are a few things I wish we would have done different, but I know that you cherish every moment that you had. And the beauty of that is, your dad coached you a lot as you were younger, growing up, and you guys were able to spend so much time together. And your mom as well. And so, that's a benefit that a lot of kids don't have for lots of different reasons. So I know that really helped you a lot. Another question that you mentioned earlier about taking a little bit of time off, and rather than doing a lot of AAU, maybe focusing on your individual skill work. It seems to me that and I guess it's very kid dependent, and maybe the coaches or the parents have to make these decisions. But it does seem to me at times that maybe there should be a part of their high school career, and you have to determine between which freshman, sophomore, junior, whatever, where maybe you spend the summer just strictly and solely doing skill work. I mean, I understand that you get better by playing, but there has to be some balance of just getting in the gym with the coach or with a teammate or somebody and working on the individual skill work. Is that pretty important, you think?
Oh, definitely. I always, of course, I coached volleyball here for a few years. I always told my players that, if you just practice when the team's practicing, you're not necessarily going to get any better as an individual. And that's one thing that I learned very quickly. My first summer playing with the Tennessee Travelers was, because I thought I was pretty good, right? And that first summer playing with them, I realized, you know what, I'm kind of talented, but I have a lot of work to do. There was it opened my eyes to see there's a lot of good ball players out there, and so really it was after that, right at the start of my junior year of high school, where I really just kind of poured myself into getting into the gym. A lot of those mornings, junior year, I'd have golf in the afternoon, so I couldn't do anything with the basketball team. So I'd get to school at 6 or 6:30 a.m. James Dixon, who was an assistant coach, he coached at East for several years. He would meet me there in the mornings. We would run, we would work out, we would get a lot of shots up. But I mean, definitely, you have to always ask, well, what is everybody else doing? And because if you're not practicing, somebody else is, and that was a time of my life where there's scholarships to be had and scholarships to be offered, and I want to be offered some of those. The best thing anybody can do, whether it's basketball, volleyball, baseball, is find that time to work individually with a parent or with a friend. It makes all the difference in the world. That's the only way. Really the only way you get better as an individual player.
And I know that obviously what you do during the season, during those 4 years that you're in high school, I know that obviously matters, and your stats are continually hopefully growing and getting better. But do you think that college scholarships are really acquired during the summer, during AAU? Is that where you're really as a player seeing? I mean, what's more important, do you think? Where is that scholarship earned more?
Well, I think it can obviously be left up to the individual. If you're good enough, they're going to find you. That's what I was always told. But at the same time, as I said, for me, the experience of getting into that AAU circuit, it showed me that I needed to get better. And so that's kind of what pushed me, I guess, to the next level that I needed to get to. I don't think it's impossible for a player in high school to be totally ignored if they don't play AAU, but at the same time, it's only going to make you better individually when you're playing against better competition, and it's showing you the things that you need to do better. Perfect example for me was my sophomore year of high school. I didn't hit a single 3-point shot. And, if you watched me or knew me playing in college, that's about all I did. And so it was over that summer from my sophomore year to my junior year, and I don't remember how many I hit as a junior, but that was a point of emphasis for me, was playing AAU. I was 6'7", been a post player most of my career, but I wasn't going to be a Division I college post player. It wasn't going to be big enough. So those are, I found certain skills that I had to add if I wanted to get to that point. And I don't know if I would have discovered that or realized that if it hadn't been for playing travel ball.
That's interesting because, you see a lot of kids who seem to be really pigeonholed into one position in high school, and they may be at 6'4" or 6'5", the tallest kid on the team. They have to play post. But if they want to transition, as you said, to the next level, especially to the level you did to D1, they got you listed as 6'8", 220 as a forward when you played at Belmont. But even as you're a big guy. I mean, when you walking around Centerville, Tennessee, you not very rarely ever see anybody as big as you. But when you step on the Division I basketball floor, you're pretty average, huh?
Yes, and there were moments where I played post position in college. It was exhausting because I was not as strong and as big as other people. But that was something else too. As I learned different post moves. My dad taught me a jump hook. The importance and the art of a shot fake. So there's still things people who are undersized, I guess, that you can still learn to do. Offensively as a post player, I managed. I held my own, but it was it was defensively where, you run into Roy Hibbert, who was 7'2".
Oh, wow.
There's nothing I'm going to be able to do. So, I tell young players all the time, it's just finding new skills that you can add. My 6-year-old son is convinced that he needs to dribble with his right hand all the time because he's good at it. And I just try to stress to him, well, you can do that, but what else can you do? What can you do with your left hand? How do you add to the skills you already have? So
yeah. When he hits junior pro, they're going to be pushing him left. A good coach.
That's right. That's right.
Push that Dotson kid left. He has no left.
At that age, most of them are getting pushed left.
They are. they really are. Yeah. So you go through high school. Your senior year, was that your best year for the most part as far as scoring and that type of thing?
Yes, as a team, we probably had our best success my junior year as far as a season.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing with people like Grant Lever and Mason Floyd, Michael Jenkins, CJ Pillow. We had a really good all-around team that year. Statistically, individually, my senior year, that was also the year we advanced to the region tournament, which had not been done in several years, which that was 2005. Just recently this year, 2020, was the first time our team had done it since then. So we're certainly glad to see our team this year have that success. But it was a good season. It was my senior year was also a frustrating season, I guess. Felt like we didn't necessarily meet expectations, but that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and you talk about, I mean, all those guys that you mentioned are very, very talented. Grant Lieber, so much so in golf that he almost made it, I guess in some ways did play at the highest level,
Right.
An aspiring PGA professional, but boy, he could jump. I remember that.
He tore his ACL when he was a sophomore, and he came back and he could jump out of the gym.
Oh, my goodness.
It's an amazing thing.
It is. It really is. So you graduate from Hickman County High School, and you've got the summer before you. So as you graduated, heading into the summer, did you play AAU that summer?
No.
Okay.
And typically, usually the summer before senior year is really your last.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
Year. I think there are some AAU opportunities there, but
right. Well, okay. So to that end, did you already tell me where you began thinking about the University of Tennessee and how that process sort of began?
The university. So our traveling, our coach, his name was Charlie Benson. He had a son who was an assistant to Buzz Peterson at the University of Tennessee. A couple of commits to Tennessee had dropped that commitment, and I think maybe signed with Auburn. And I honestly don't know what ended up happening there. But so 2 scholarships became available to the University of Tennessee. One of them was offered to me. Again, I was a lifelong Vol hater. As you know, again, I was a Vanderbilt guy through and through, and wanted to go to play at Vanderbilt. That was the ultimate goal. Dad and I had season tickets for years. Had an opportunity to walk on there for a year and then potentially get a scholarship, but that was not something that I was looking to get school paid for, and I felt like I deserved that, and my parents deserved that, and so you get an opportunity to play in the SEC, and I'll say that too. Tennessee was really the only high major school that offered me a scholarship. There were some Atlantic 10 schools, UNC Charlotte, places like that, but the only SEC school was Tennessee. And, I knew a lot of people who loved Tennessee. It wasn't too far from home. You hear SEC and you think, well, maybe the NBA. You have all these dreams that fill your head as an 18-year-old kid. and all your friends saying, "Hey, man, it'd be awesome to be a Vol." And so I made the difficult decision to say no to Belmont and to Tennessee Tech and to Austin P, who were probably the ones that I looked most closely. I took a visit to Yale. Wonderful man, James Jones, who still coaches there. Yale just wasn't for me, but so Tennessee, ultimately, it came down to, I think this is going to be the best opportunity for me to succeed as a basketball player and play at the highest level. And so I signed the letter of commitment. That would have been in November of my senior year, right before our high school season started. And that was how I got there.
Yeah, it's kind of put to bed, I guess, in your mind. So
Yep.
you had already signed. So, and I guess part of that was probably a relief to you and your parents, because now you can play your senior year. You don't have to worry about where am I going to go, what am I going to do, what coach is going to show up tonight, if I have a bad game, whatever. And so that had to have been a relief in some ways, I would think.
It was. The recruiting process was difficult. My dad stressed to me to not close any doors. And so where, at times I might have wanted to tell certain universities, hey, I'm not really interested. My father made me keep those doors open just in case, which I understand. But, you develop you develop some strong relationship with these head coaches, assistant coaches. There were some that I took into Papa Cajo's for dinner. And
yeah, I remember a time or two.
Yeah, and and obviously they're going to be nice to you because they're trying to recruit you, but just some really good, high quality men that you get to, a lot of them you get to talking to once a week at least. A lot of them came to our home in Centerville, Tennessee, and had dinner with me and my parents, and so it was very difficult to kind of end those relationships, and certainly a relief to have that out of the way before the season started.
How much of you signing with UT was because your coach was Michael Jordan's roommate? I mean, come on, man.
That's certainly,
my goodness.
It was something, I saw Buzz in the first episode of The Last Dance.
Yeah, right.
And I brought that up to Sissy, like I was supposed to play for him. And it's remarkable to think what could have been, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, so you signed. You're signed with Tennessee. You're going into the summer after your senior year. I'm assuming that you're preparing to get ready to move to Knoxville. I'm sure you probably have to get there early and start doing some workouts and all of that stuff. So kind of tell us or give us a timeline. What sort of happened? Something happened from the time that you signed as you go into the summertime.
In March, at the end of the collegiate season, Buzz Peterson got fired. I had several universities reach out to me at that point in time. Georgia Tech was the one that at the time was probably the biggest. They'd been a national runner-up less than a couple years before. They had reached out to my AAU coach to see if I had any interest. And, at that point in time, I said, I'm committed to the University of Tennessee, and I trusted their athletic department to hire the next coach, which they hired Bruce Pearl, who called me just a few days after he was hired. An assistant came down to watch me play pickup. And the plan was for me to begin summer school classes less than a week after I graduated from high school. So I graduated on a Saturday, went to the beach for a few days, went up to Knoxville and played pickup with some of their team that was there, saw where I was going to room, signed up for summer classes, which of course I don't remember what those were. And I was set to move in on a Monday to start class on a Tuesday. And Sunday we were eating lunch after church at Fish Camp, me and my parents and my grandparents, and got a call from Bruce Pearl, who I had talked to, face to face, not I think 3 days before. Everything was good. And long story short, got that phone call. Apparently everything was not so good. He had, to put it briefly, he had basically thought it was in my best interest to go somewhere else. A player by the name of Ryan Childress, who played there for 4 years, had been one of his recruits to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, I think is where he was prior to coming to Knoxville. and he had signed him to come to Tennessee, and he pretty much said, this guy is kind of the same player you are, a little more talented than you are, will fit in my system better than you do. Didn't say that I couldn't come to Tennessee. He said, I was more than welcome to start, but his point was if I had started classes that week, I would have not been able to change schools without losing some eligibility or something like that. So he encouraged me to call Rick Byrd, who I did, to just kind of talk to him about the whole situation. And Coach Byrd, who I had essentially told no to, a few months prior, was very gracious and very kind and still very helpful to me in offering me some guidance. And, but it was about 48 hours there was a pretty rough deal. I'd never really seen my mom mad until all that happened. And my mom, she's very low key and very calm, but she was not in the aftermath of that.
She was not a happy camper. What I remember is the George Plaster show. Boy, you were the topic for a day or two about how they had done you wrong.
They were hurting for topics, weren't they?
They were hurting for topics. I remember. I think Craig Shelton called in. I called in. I think we were. Come on, we got to support our buddy here, and he's been done wrong. And so, was Belmont? Were they your second choice the entire? So, if you had ranked them, was Belmont kind of your second choice, or what brought? What led you there?
I had early on in my recruitment to Belmont, I wasn't all that interested, mainly because I had not followed Belmont's program a lot. They'd only been they'd been Division I for less than 10 years, I think, at that time. But Coach Byrd had, I remember he had come to watch me play just about every AAU game that I played in the summer prior to my senior year, which was, it's usual to have an assistant coach at a game, but it's very unusual for the head coach to consistently be there like that. Coach Byrd thought I fit his system really well.
Were you aware of that at the time, that he was there specifically watching you?
He made it aware, and he wasn't. Daniel Puckett, who was Ron's nephew. Yes. I think they were also recruiting him, but I was kind of their top guy that they were trying to sign. At least for my position, I should say. But and Coach Byrd, it was very clear that he valued not just me, the basketball player, but me, the person. And my values and his values kind of really closely matched up. And I took an official visit there and stayed 2 nights in August near the start of my senior year. And I left there. I'd been around the team. I'd been around the coaches, people all throughout the university. I got to have breakfast at Pancake Pantry with Vince Gill, which was fun. But I kind of left that visit thinking this is where I'm going to go unless something crazy happens. And lo and behold, something crazy happened. And Dad always told me in hindsight, he said, I should have just told you to just go ahead and sign with Belmont after that visit, because it would have saved me a lot of grief, I guess. But yeah, I had kind of decided I was going to go to Belmont, and then the SEC comes calling, and that was it was hard to walk away from.
Wow. So it was going to be Belmont the entire time. Tennessee steps in. You're like, how can I turn down an SEC school? Mm-hmm. We're going to go to Tennessee, and then it kind of the carpet gets pulled out from underneath you. But don't you think? And I'm sure, and I know you well enough to know that you're somebody who has a really good perspective on things, and I would assume that maybe you look back on that, and maybe it's a good thing that happened. Maybe it's a good thing that you went through that process of anticipation and then disappointment. I'm sure that there were some things that developed within you, some character things that maybe would not have happened had that not happened. I think we can look back and just always see some gold in everything that happens.
Right. Absolutely. And that's, I've said it a million times how I was very fortunate. As much as that hurt, as much as I was angry or sad, it definitely worked out for the best. And even if I had signed with Belmont initially, my very best friend Keaton from Belmont University, he would. That's who got my scholarship. When I told Belmont no, Keaton stepped in and said yes, and so they signed him. And I would have never met Keaton or had that relationship with that good friend had it not been for the way that things happened.
Yeah.
If I had initially said yes, I would have never met Keaton.
Yeah.
But and there's all the other. I was able to intern that summer with Craig Shelton at Centerville Church of Christ, which was a great experience. It increased my interest in ministry, and of course it was closer to home. So my parents, my grandparents, and of course my wife ended up at Belmont University, who is also from Tidy's Bend. So it's pretty amazing how all those stars aligned in a very unique manner. Which I did have to pay. My parents paid my first year to Belmont. They paid that, which I always joke and say the University of Tennessee cost me $25,000.
It cost them $25,000.
Right, cost my parents $25,000. But they were because there was places where I could have gone that still had scholarships available. Belmont had given all theirs out, and it was a situation where if I had redshirted that year, I could have gotten some scholarship money, which I didn't really understand. But Coach Bird and the coaches there, they didn't want me to redshirt. They wanted me to go ahead and play as a freshman. But my parents, they were very supportive and said, we'll pay for this year. We'll make it happen, because they knew that's where I wanted to be, where I needed to be. So I'm very, very appreciative of them to this day.
Of course you are. And plus, hey, it's only an hour back home as opposed to 4 hours, coming, from Knoxville. So I could just see how it would have been just a real blessing. And so many, now you got family and friends that can more easily come and watch you play.
Right.
Easier on your mom and dad because I know they didn't miss a game.
Yep.
And that type of thing. So it had to, it was a hand in the glove. It was just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really was.
Yep. So let's see here. Let's see if you know this stuff. How many games did you play in your career at Belmont?
120, maybe.
129.
Okay.
Close. Average minutes played. 4 years.
That'll probably be around 19.
Nice. 21-5.
Okay.
Okay. Field goal attempts.
Way more than field goal makes, I can tell you that.
It is.
Oh,
actually, about 50. Actually, about 42%.
Well, I don't know, 1,200 field goal attempts, maybe.
So the average per game.
Okay.
Is 7.7.
Yeah, that went up quite a bit my last couple of years.
Yeah, it did. So your freshman year is 4.6. Your senior year is 10.6. You're chunking it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many points did you average over your career?
I want to say it was a little less than 10, maybe 8 or 9 points. Yeah.
Look at you. Well, but you increased 5.2, 7.0, 11.4, and 12 points a game in your senior year. So. Yeah,
got to show improvement, I guess.
Hey, yeah, you did. To me, I don't know. You may have a different opinion, but I would assume that one of the highlights of your career at Belmont occurred in 2008. I remember it very well. Everybody in town remembers it because it was a big deal. Because you guys, you had a good season. You made it to the big dance, as it were, and you drew the number 2 seed Duke Blue Devils as a 15 seed. Just initially when you hear that, that's got to be a lot. Is this really happening? We're going to go play Coach K.
It was definitely surreal. Of course, my freshman year, we got a 2 seed in UCLA, and they beat the brakes off of us.
Yeah.
My next year we got Georgetown. They beat the brakes off of us. Not as bad. And then it's Duke. So you got UCLA, Georgetown, Duke, 3 of the most storied programs in college basketball. And we were excited to play Duke. we knew we were going to be a 14, 15 seed again. And we knew from the get-go that Duke was a possibility, but that we also matched up well with them, as opposed to Georgetown and UCLA the years prior. So we were excited. And, I mean, I'm glad you want to talk about this, Devin, because it's been a while since I talked about it. I remember you wrote a bulletin article about
I did.
Duke, and I've got a copy of it that I still keep.
I did. Matter of fact, this has been there wasn't March Madness this past year. The year before, the guys on the radio here at Nashville, they were asking about, they were talking about Belmont games. And I called in and said, maybe the biggest Belmont game ever was against Duke. Mentioned you, and Matthew, and all that. So let's see, where was the game at?
Washington, D.C. It was our nation's capital. We had, me and a few friends, we went and walked around the White House and the Capitol. We had some time to kill the day before the game, and so that was a neat experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Being there.
So now, is this your? Is it your junior year?
My junior year, 2008. Yep.
Okay. So can you remember what would, for those who know a little bit about basketball, who would have been on that Duke team maybe that went on to play in the NBA?
Gerald Henderson.
Yep.
He's the one that hit the game-winning layup over me. So I remember him. John Shire, who I think is now an assistant coach at Duke. Kyle Singler went on to play in the NBA. They had I can't think of his first name, but Nelson was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Greg Paulus. I don't remember if he played in the NBA or not, but I mean it was a pretty talented top to bottom Duke team.
Yeah.
They had a guy that was 7'2", but so it was certainly going to be a challenge. I do remember they had a lot of youth. Two or three of those guys were freshmen, so we were a much more experienced team. I remember top to bottom, and so we felt confident that was going to be an advantage. But yeah, Gerald Henderson, Kyle Singler, probably two with the most successful NBA careers.
Yeah. So did you start that game? I think
I did. Yes.
Yeah, and played most of the game. So going into halftime, I didn't look it up. It was pretty close. Yes, was it close?
I think we were down by 7.
Okay, so yeah, certainly pretty close. And so, do you remember what Coach Bird? I mean, you've heard a ton of rah-rah speeches from Coach Bird. Anything stick out in your mind that particular halftime?
Coach Bird was usually very even-keeled. He could certainly get perturbed with us, but he was very much about staying focused on what we were doing well. He felt, we didn't rebound. I remember we didn't rebound very well in that first half. We were a little undersized compared to them. Again, going back to me being a 5, I played the 5 position most of that game from what I recall. That was a year where we were a little undersized, but so we had to rebound better. That was a point of emphasis. They'd had too many second chance opportunities. But we were getting good looks, and we knew it was just a matter of time before they started going down. And Duke, I remember, was having a hard time with our offense. We ran a lot of backdoor plays. They were having a hard time controlling our point guard's penetration. And so we just felt like if we could rebound a little bit better and continue to take open shots, that eventually things were going to kind of turn in our favor.
So as you guys get into the waning moments of the game, the last couple, 2 or 3 minutes, it's obviously getting tight. You guys, I don't know if you remember when you took the first lead. Was it right? Did you just have the one?
Well, no. I mean, it was kind of. I want to say we took the lead with maybe 13 or 14 minutes left in the game. We made a run right out of the half, and it was kind of back and forth as far as who was leading all the way down. And I just remember with less than a minute left, we were up by 1, and saying, "Wow, this is pretty remarkable." You have 20,000 people in an arena, and 19,000 of them are cheering for Belmont. It was a pretty surreal experience.
It's an amazing. I can't imagine. And here you are running, 90 feet one end to the other. And did it ever occur to you? You look over at the sideline, you're like, "I'm from Centerville, Tennessee, and here is Mike Krzyzewski. He's right there." It had to be surreal.
Cool.
It was. Yeah.
Was.
So you get down to the end of the game.
I think you guys are probably up 70 to 69, maybe.
I think that's right.
And then, so what happens? You've already sort of said it, but
Well, we came down. We didn't get a good shot off. We were up by one. Shot clock was winding down. We had to shoot. We didn't get a good shot. And then the next thing I know, Gerald Henderson gets the ball. It's like he gets down the court in half a second. I mean, I remember running down trying to find my man, which I knew Gerald Henderson was not my man. Coach would have never had me guarding him.
Right.
And I was about half a second too late from really getting in position to take a charge, which is what I should have done, obviously. But, you know, I've run that play over my head a million times.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my mind, the referee probably wouldn't even blow the whistle, just because I remember Gerald Henderson was like flying. It was like he was flying over me. Is what it felt like.
Right.
But it was one of those. You know, it all happened so quickly. You're getting back down the floor trying to find your man. The next thing you know, here comes another guy. But you know, it was unfortunate that it happened the way it did. And of course, I was the one left kind of in a bad spot. But you know, I've questioned if I'd just taken one step, one second
well,
sooner,
sure.
what would have happened?
Well, at any rate, the next round, West Virginia took care. Was it West Virginia or Virginia?
I think it was West Virginia. Bob Huggins in West Virginia.
Yeah, they took care of them. And I actually Googled Belmont Duke, and there's a list that talks about the 10 games that Duke wishes they could forget forever. And one of y'all's is one of them. It's your game, and then the next game against West Virginia. And, you know, the 2008 Duke Blue Devils, they were done early, which was unusual.
Yeah, it was and there's a lot of there's several YouTube videos out there too of some bad calls by the officials.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. There was, because we got the ball back after Duke went up by one, and ball went out of bounds, and we had the ball underneath, so we called timeout. And I think 4 or 5 seconds left in the game, and it was a lob play. We were going to try to lob it up to Shane Dansby, and I remember just like as soon as I went to go where I was supposed to go, I got pushed to the floor by 2 different Duke players. Oh. And I started falling, and then people started tripping, and then somebody else fell. It was just a busted play from the start, and I think they should have called a foul. I should have been shooting a 1-on-1, but
wow,
they never asked me.
Do you really? Did you? I mean, are you the kind of guy that you're like, I'm on national TV, I've got a chance here, we're down by 1. This is what you shoot in the backyard for your entire life. You know, wow, what a Cinderella story that would have been.
Well, and Sissy always asked me, she's like, were you sure you would have even made them? So,
of course you would have made it, right?
In my mind, I would have, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. I would have put all the money in the world on you making it. But that was, I remember where I was at on the edge of my seat watching you guys, and I don't know, man, we're just so proud of the team, and we're just really, really proud of you. And, you know, Centerville boy done well, and then, you know, you went on to finish your career there at Belmont, and I've heard you speak many times about Coach Bird and how much he means to you. Came down to watch your kids play junior pro, I think. And he just seems, I've never met him, but just watching from the outside in the interviews and all this stuff, he just seems like an absolute salt of the earth class act dude.
He is exactly who he is on TV, and he you know, I've said it over and over. He didn't just care about us as basketball players. He cared about us as people. He wanted us to get a good education. He wanted us to, you know, we took a trip we spent 12 days in Europe the summer before my junior season. We played 4 exhibition games, 2 in London, 2 in Paris. Of course, we thought we were going to get over there and play ball, practice the whole time, and we didn't do anything. We played those 4 games, and the rest of the time we just saw what Europe had to offer. There was no practices. He wanted us to get that full college experience. He encouraged us to go on mission trips, which several of us did. You know, I graduated. 2 weeks later, I got married. He was at my wedding. The following day, my grandmother passed away. He drove back down to Centerville to her funeral visitation. He came to my father's funeral, and he, you know, it's just as you said, he came to watch Bruin play Centerville Junior Pro basketball, and ate with us at fish camp. He's just he's a simple guy. He always says he's old school in what he believes, and he wouldn't let us wear headphones going into a game. We went through an airport. We had to wear a polo shirt and khakis, and we had to be kind and courteous to people at the airport and people in restaurants and bus drivers. He demanded we be of high character, and it's certainly made a difference in my life, and I know the life of a lot of my teammates.
Wow. Is he as connected to a lot of your other teammates as he is you? I mean, is he going to watch all these other guys' kids play, or do you think there was something really special between you and he?
Well, I think so. But I know he keeps track of a lot of guys to the extent he can. When he announced his retirement, Bruin immediately said, "Well, he's retiring, Dad, so he can come help you coach my junior pro team."
Yeah, there you go.
And so I texted Coach Bird that and congratulated him. And he said, I can't help you coach, but let me know his schedule and I'll come watch him play.
That's great.
And, Bruin thinks the world of Coach Bird. But, I mean, I've got several teammates that he keeps in contact with, I know. And, just one of those guys, he'd do anything for you that he could. His wife, Cheryl, is an amazing woman. And I'm just happy that he's able to enjoy this part of his life right now. And that's what he said when he came to we were sitting there eating at fish camp after Bruins game, and he said, if I was still coaching, I'd be at Jacksonville State tonight stressing over how to win a road game. And,
of course.
I think he's really enjoying getting to do what he's doing now.
Well, so it seems to me that in many ways Bruce Pearl did you a favor.
He did
on a lot of different ways.
It's hard for me to phrase it that way, but yes, you're right.
Well, I think so. I think so. And that's easy for me to say. I wasn't the one involved with it, and to be able to go and play on the same floor. Well, not quite the same floor, but that Mike Smithson, played on. Right. Maybe wear the striped pants and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like it worked out pretty well for you.
It did, and we played Tennessee my senior year. At Tennessee. Yeah. I think I had 10 points. We lost by one, another 1 point loss, but that was a great experience. And yeah, I mean, I think it certainly worked out the way God wanted it to, and the way I wanted it to.
Indeed, it did. And the beauty for you is, as I was coming up through high school, Belmont, Lipscomb, they were NAIA schools. And so obviously they weren't traveling around doing near as much as by the time you got there, they're Division I. And you're getting to go to some of these bigger places and play and take the trips. And, I don't know that obviously it would have been cool to have played for an SEC school, I think. But I don't know. It seems like you did pretty well where you were at.
Well, what's cool when you're 18 is very different from what's cool when you're 22, 23, 33. And you learn that, some things are more important than what you thought they were at the time. And, for an 18-year-old kid who didn't know anything, it was very difficult. But when I was 22 and graduating from Belmont and getting married and coming back home to work in the Hickman County school system, it was that's what was cool at that point, was that all that happened.
That's awesome. So you graduate Belmont, you get married to your sweetheart, you have a couple of beautiful boys, you teach in the school system, you start a world-renowned podcast of what to do when you go to Disney, and Lord knows that if anybody knows it, it's you, because you go about 3 or 4 times a year apparently.
Used to. I don't know about now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's, now you guys have kind of retired from that, semi-retired.
Yeah. We'll come back out and put a show out eventually. Right now there's just not a whole lot that needs to be said. And, that was just something fun that Craig and Derek and I really enjoyed. Grim Gritting Guys, if you want to check that out, those of you who are watching, we've got 200 shows out there. But I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was just a good time to get together and talk about something that we really enjoyed. And I don't know how much toward the end, I don't know how much advice we were actually offering, but we enjoyed it. We had a good time, and we made a lot of friends around the world, around the country, really, who we still keep in touch with. We were texting with one of them from Southern Illinois earlier today.
Wow. Yeah, I watch your would watch your Twitter feed a little bit, and you had some people from all over the place asking
Yeah,
questions and doing different things. So,
it's pretty neat.
yeah. So who knows? You may let's see. Now you currently teach history at Hickman County High School.
I do. This past year, for the first year, I taught dual enrollment, American History 1 and American History 2. That is a college credit class where students get college credit to Freed-Hardeman University.
Yep.
And something great that our school's doing now is there was one young lady that was a senior. She got 15 hours of college credit this year. And
Wow.
juniors who were taking advantage of that program can graduate with up to 20 something hours. So I loved doing that. And I teach U.S. government and also contemporary issues. Just finished up about to start my 12th year teaching.
Well, there's a lot of new history to talk about when you finally
Yes,
get.
there a lot of contemporary issues. That's for sure.
Indeed, no question about it. So I know you've had a lot of thrills in your life. One of them was, you got to be the color. No, you were the play-by-play guy at the Hickman County High School Volley Dog State Tournament run.
That's right.
And you had a pretty decent color guy. I think.
Oh, hey, that was a blast. I loved it.
We had a good time doing that, and hopefully we'll get to maybe again do that in the next couple of years. So I was thinking as we close, if there was to be and we're going to do this, is going to be pre-East Hickman High School. Okay, so if there were to be a Mount Rushmore of Hickman County High School basketball, I think I thought about this. And most of the banners, I guess, are kind of on the wall. Would you agree that it would be maybe Janet Blackwell, Mike Smithson, Becky Mott, maybe Talisha Skates as well, because they were together, and Matthew Dotson? What do you think about the Mount Rushmore of now I'll say this. I graduated in 1987. The three-point line came into effect in 1988. So had that come earlier, my whole life might have changed. You might have been interviewing me about going to Belmont.
That's right.
And I, the number 24 might have been up in the Raptors as well. But at any rate, do you like that company you're in that I put you in there?
Yeah. If you got to narrow it down to 4 heads, I'd just take mine off and leave those other 4.
You think so?
But yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be mentioned in the category of those players. I grew up watching Becky Mott and Talisha Skates, and Coach Smithson coached me throughout high school, and I work with him now. It's just it's special to be in that company.
It is, and growing up in a small town, there's only so much to do. We ain't got a Walmart, so you play sports. You play baseball and play basketball. But there's something special about your teammates, and I know you can look back on from middle school all the way through your final college game, and you've made so many friendships and relationships, and I'm sure a lot of those still continue even to this day. But you've become a very well-rounded Christian man in this community, Matthew, and you are a role model for a lot of folks. You're heavily involved in FCA, heavily involved in the goings on at the Centerville Church of Christ. And as we close, I was listening to your lesson Sunday morning. I sent you a text, and it was really poignant to me. And then I saw your picture that you posted on Facebook of the letter that your dad wrote and left for you, just reminding you in a lot of ways, I think, just to kind of remember who you are. Don't forget about your family. Remember where you've come from. And I know that Roger is proud because you've done every bit of that.
Well, I appreciate you saying all that, Devin. It means a lot, and I think a lot of you appreciate what you do.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, Matthew, I've taken up your time. I'm sure you're ready to go to bed after having
So like I said, it's this whole this new schedule since school's been out. I'm all over the map. So
cool. Okay. Well, I tell you what, we might, if we get brave, we might do another one of these and talk a little history and politics and all that good stuff. If we decide we just want to make a lot of folks mad at us, hey, we may jump in there and do that.
That's what'll happen.
Yeah, okay. Matthew, I really appreciate it, buddy, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Devin. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. See you. Take care.
See you.
Bye-bye.